Welcome to the second traverse in the Sahyadri webinar series. Today we'll look at the traverse starting at Harishchandragad and proceeding through beautiful countryside along the Deccan Plateau to the Bhandardara Reservoir, where we'll be going through beautiful jungle trails covering some 12 peaks and forts in this region. As usual, these videos are available on my YouTube channel, on Insta TV, the 10 first minutes posted as preview, accessible on ultrajourneys.org, my blog, and also posted on Facebook. Here is the traverse. So at the bottom we start from Harishchandragad, we climb up from the Pinnacle Reservoir, climb up to Touristic, and then basically proceed through Kalgat, then to Katrabai, jump over a small saddle there, visiting Bairavgat to proceed along the Deccan Ridge to Ratangat, cross the upper side of the Bhandardara Reservoir to Alang, Madan and Kulang, furthermore go to Sakira and Kalsubai, and from there come down again around the Bhandardara Reservoir to Pabargat, Sindola, Mukal Peak, Shirpunja, Ganchakar and Bairavgat. An amazing, one of my favorite traverse actually in the 200 forts I visited in the Sahyadri. A little history on Harishchandragad. The fort is quite ancient. Remnants of the microlithic man have been discovered here. The various Puranas, ancient scriptures like Matsya Purana, Agni Purana and Sanda Purana include many references about Harishchandragad. Its origin is said to have been in the 6th century during the rule of the Kalchuri dynasty. The citadel was built during this area. The various caves probably have been carved out in the 11th century. In these caves are idols of Lord Vishnu. So we start at the Pimplegan Reservoir, which we reach through Junar, and then basically climb up through this small saddle called Touristic. From there we can further climb up to the top of Harishchandragad through kind of small trails and rocky rock patches. Finally, here we can see the beautiful top side of Harishchandragad, which steeply drops down on the right side towards the Pimplegan Reservoir. Let's take a video here. It's quite windy. Heavenly views from the top of Harishchandragad, from the dam below where we started from. Forests in the valleys with steep drops in between. The clouds are changing the view every few seconds. Voila, so then from the top we go down through a sequence of ladders and some small gullies to a more like a plain flat area called the Konkan with stunning views on the Konkan Plains steep below. Here you can see the nearly vertical rock faces dropping down from the top of Konkan to the base actually. Then coming a little down towards the Deccan side from Harishchandragad, we find some beautiful ancient temples here. Beautiful design, a lot of rock carvings in this temple. You can also find the caves mentioned in the history referring to Lord Vishnu. And then given the fact that Harishchandragad is quite popular, of course you have a lot of local people there who set up small shops for stay and food. So for 60 rupees here you get a good plate of bakris or rotis. Here also I discovered my favorite dish of my 2-month stay in the Sahyadris, being pitla bakri. Yummy. Voila, getting down then on the other side of Harishchandragad, we go through a nice trail. This is frequently visited. I think this is the main entry from where we go through some beautiful waterfalls dropping down from the top. Finally, we reached to another fort at the back of Harishchandragad called Kalatgat, less popular, less traversed, quite steep also. This fort can easily be accessed from Pachna village, which is the base village of Harishchandragad. And this fort lies on one side of the route, and it's very less visited. The ridge from where the ascent has to be done faces east, and hence it's advised to start the trek early hours to avoid heavy sun. Here you can see the ridge actually doesn't look very steep, but it's definitely quite steep, and a couple of rock cut steps in between where you have to be careful, especially when it's wet again during or after the monsoon. When we went there, I think around Diwali time, many of the local villagers, including women and children, were all coming up to the top and celebrate a festival at After that, we proceed further along the kind of Deccan Plateau towards the Bhandardara region, where we have to cross here post-monsoon end of October through the Mula river, which is in full flow. Of course, wonderful opportunity to take a dip after all those sweaty climbs up to the forts. In the back you can already see Katrabai there in the middle, and on the left side, which might probably be the pinnacle of Ratangad. Come and take a dip. It's
like taking into Alpine.
Beautiful place. On the way to Katrabai from Harishchandragad, we cross the big river with good water flow. Beautiful place, meeting small villages along the way. Taken straight out of a fairy tale, this location, surrounded by light hills. Beautiful place.
Voila, then we proceed in pretty open farmlands with very small settlements around the locality of Kumshet. And walk towards the base of the majestic Katrabai peak in the background there. You can see really very rural places here, not much connected through roads, so left out of the development. And a lot of tradition there and heritage you can spot, like wall paintings on the houses. Finally, we climb over a small saddle on the way to Ratangad, a saddle that also gives us access to Katrabai, from where we already get beautiful bird's eye views on the Bhandardara Reservoir, one of the oldest reservoirs in the Sahyadri, 400 years old. Climbing up then from the saddle, you can go to a pretty huge peak, which is Katrabai. Here you can see a set of stones, like in the Himalayas, almost cairns to mark this peak, I guess. Again, stunning views on the Bhandardara in the back. During the monsoon, when it's wet and rainy, you find lots of crabs in this all over the Sahyadris. It's amazing to see this sea animal in abundance across the hills. Then next is Ratangad. It's a fort in Ratanwadi, Maharashtra, India, overlooking the locale of Bhandardara, one of the oldest artificial catchment areas. It's on the boundary of Ahmadnagar and Taina districts. The fort is about 400 years old and is often covered with flowering plants in November. Ratangad is also called Jewels of the Fort. Was captured by Chhatrapati Shivaji Raje Bhosle. Here it starts actually around the whole Bhandardara Reservoir. In the coming traverse you'll see amazing trails, forest trails connecting all these peaks and forts around this region. Here is the back entry towards Ratangad, like a steep ascent from the fort, from the forest into the fort through a small opening here. From there again you climb up further through rock-cut steps and get stunning views from a couple of caves here, big caves, again on that same Bhandardara region. On the back of Ratanghat you can also see steep drops between Ratanghat and Katrabai, very vertical drops straight into the Konkan Plains. A lot of reservoirs on top of Ratanghat for, I guess, during sieges when the armies had to store grains, water and oil to survive for months. Then on the other side, as we tour around Ratanghat, we can see the Konkan Plains in the back. And finally, we come up to a beautiful pinhole on top. There we go. Misty in the morning.
Ratanghat, stunning views. Just came through the famous pinhole.
Okay, so here we can see that pinhole, which we'll also be seeing on a couple of other forts, at least some 5-6 on my 200 fort traverse. Finally, we descend from the top pinhole on the front side through a kind of a ridge below the top of the Ratanghat. You can see there the top view. From the pinhole side, it looks quite big, the hill, but from the side view, in many cases, these volcanic pinnacles are quite narrow. Let's go for a small run from the pinnacle to down. Mesmerizing views there in the clouds.
Right? Yeah.
Running in heaven. There you can see then the pinnacle on the other end of Ratanghat. And then we finally come to the main entry from where in this case we'll be descending. Big kind of steep gully where large rock cut steps have been carved. A bit tricky when it's wet, and mostly it is wet here, to not slip down and pick up speed and be gone. You have to be a little careful here. In some parts there are metal railings. Voila, this is finally how it comes out of the gully, and then you have a contouring traverse until at below the other pinnacle you will again drop down into a pretty steep gully with some ladders, some of which are destroyed, or plain gullies filled with loose rocks. You get down then finally towards the Bhandardara region. Then we go towards the next traverse, Alang, Madan and Kulang. So this is 3 forts next to each other, situated in the Kalsubai range, which are the most difficult forts, it seems, in the Nasik district. Dense forest and less population have made these treks difficult. The 3 forts are neglected due to very heavy rain, and difficult as well as confusing ways to go up. Here then from one of the upper dams at the base of EMK, you can see the skyline there, Alang on the right side, Madan in the middle and Kulang on the left side. Pretty huge forts. This is basically the reservoir is formed by the Geit dam, which blocks the water flowing down to the Konkan Plains in the back here. Finally, we proceed further from this reservoir along the Deccan Ridge, getting stunning steep drops, views on the Konkan Plains below. Also a couple of waterfalls dropping down steeply there into the plains.
Standing on the edge of the Deccan Plateau. Up there is Kulang from the AMK Reservoirs. Next should be Madan. Alang should be behind. Amazing to walk on the edge of the world.
Voila, you can see the top of that same waterfall, which suddenly drops down all of a sudden on top of those 14 layers of volcanic eruptions. Then we climb up along a small ridge and go around the first fort of Kulang from the base of, midway between the plains and the top of the fort. We have a traverse from where we get views on the Ichtapuri site. Along the way you also get nice views on the three forts, Alang in the back, Madan in the middle there, and Kulang right above. Pretty dense vegetation at the end of the monsoon. As we then approach towards the entry of Kulang, we'll have to climb up quite steeply for a while to reach the final section, which becomes then technical. In this case, in this traverse, we did not go up to the top of the forts, which I did in an earlier trip to the Sahyadri. So we'll just continue along this midway traverse here below Kulang, till we eventually proceed through the other side through a small saddle, getting views on the middle fort of Madan. And then finally from Alang we get down again to a midway platform here, a beautiful kind of flat in between section from where again you can see those waterfalls dropping down into the Bhandardara region with views of Alang Fort on the right top there. Perfect place for a campsite on top of these beautiful waterfalls, and of course a nice little campfire to keep us warm in the night. Voila, this is the first part of the Harishchandragad to AMK traverse, located in the Bhandardara Reservoir. Stay tuned for tomorrow when I will take you to another some 6 to 8 forts and peaks around the same beautiful Bhandardara region. Stay tuned, full videos are available on ultrajourneys.org. You can also subscribe on my website to get automatic updates on these ongoing daily webinars.